Hi everyone. I'm a little weirded out by something and I could really use some advice. My grandfather has been dead for about 10 years now, but before he died, he made a Facebook account. I never unfriended him because it felt like I still had a connection with him as long as I could go back and reread our old conversations. Well, a few weeks ago, I noticed my friends count had gone down by 2. I never had many Facebook friends, so I knew it had to be 2 of my close friends or relatives who unfriended me. Eventually, I realized it had to be my grandma and grandpa. I thought maybe Facebook had closed grandpa's account because he had been dead for so long. But that still didn't explain why my grandma unfriended me. Also, I could still find both of them by searching for their names. I don't know why, but I tried adding both of them again. Almost immediately, the option to add my grandpa returned, so I know my request was ignored. The request to add my grandma remained pending for a few hours, but eventually that too was ignored. All this is a little beside the point and more detailed than you probably care about, but I need to tell someone, because it's all still really strange to me, and I wanted to tell the whole story. My grandmother is still alive. I don't visit her as often as I should, maybe a few times a year. She's not very tech savvy, but she's on Facebook once or twice a month. And after a few hours of painstakingly guiding her through online banking, she's even managed to start paying her bills online. But other than that, Facebook is about the most complicated computer thing she can handle. I asked my mother, and she checked her own account. She too had been unfriended as well. She almost had a small meltdown when she called my grandma and she didn't pick up. I live pretty close to my mother, so she picked me up and we drove to grandma's house together. It's only an hour away. Really, there is no excuse for visiting her as seldom as we do. Grandma was home and she was happy to see us. When my mother demanded to know why she hadn't picked up the phone, she said she was visiting grandpa's grave. She didn't seem to think my mother had any reason to be upset, but still, she invited us in and asked if we wanted to stay for dinner or coffee. We decided to remain for a few hours. As I said, we really should have visited her more often. And every time we visit, it's clear Grandma likes having us. When we're there, we do feel guilty about it, but life moves pretty quickly, and there's always something else that we need to do. My grandma has an old piano. I'm not very musically inclined, but it's very nostalgic for me to hear Mother and Grandma play the piano, which they did, as they always do when we visit. It felt good. It felt normal. So I told myself she had probably just had an old person moment and logged into Grandpa's account for some reason. But I was still curious, so I asked her during dinner. She looked embarrassed, but said she just didn't feel like using Facebook anymore, so she had tried to close out her account. We said the accounts were still open though, but she simply waved it off. We finished dinner and helped her with a few things around the house. She was happy to have us there, and again, everything felt normal. Eventually, we went home. A few weeks passed. Mom and I both called Grandma once or twice, and everything still seemed fine. But late one night last week, I decided to look my grandparents up on Facebook again. The profile pictures had changed. Grandma used to change hers every now and then, and the new ones didn't look unusual. But Grandma said she had stopped using her Facebook, and there was no reason at all for Grandpa's account to have a new picture. I brought it up with my mom the next day, and she had that same feeling as I did, that something just wasn't right. We went to visit Grandma again yesterday. She was glad to see us like always. In fact, she seemed happier than she had been in a long time. We asked her about Facebook again, and she said she hadn't been on it. When we mentioned the profile pictures changing, she said maybe she had been on there once or twice. She didn't want to talk about it, so we just dropped the subject. We helped her with a few chores around the house again, but this time my curiosity was stronger, so I made sure I had an excuse to go into her bedroom while she was in the kitchen with my mother, and I turned on her computer. I know all her passwords because she never changes them, and she has them all written down on a little notepad next to her laptop. It was a cheap piece of crap the day we bought it for her half a decade ago, but she only uses it for very basic things like writing about her childhood. But I saw something that struck me as odd. She had a Tor browser. Now, my grandma's not stupid, but she's always been very bad at computering, like a lot of old people. So this surprised me. Even my parents probably don't even know what Tor browsers are used for, so my grandma definitely shouldn't. Hell, I don't even know that much. I've only ever seen them mentioned in posts. I clicked on the browser and it opened up a normal search engine. No bookmarks, no browsing history, nothing. Considering she was in the habit of writing all of her account names and passwords down on post-it notes and leaving them by the computer, I figured she probably didn't even use the browser. I closed it, opened up her regular browser and went to Facebook. She was logged in. She had unfriended everyone. Everyone except my grandpa. And this is what creeps me out. There were posts on both her and Grandpa's timelines, going back to the day she had unfriended everyone. Some posts were from his account. The rest were from hers. They replied to each other. It looked like real conversations. Grandma would sometimes take minutes to reply, sometimes hours. But Grandpa's replies were almost instantaneous. There were older pictures of them back when they were younger, from back before digital cameras. I suppose it's possible Grandma might have learned how to scan photos or paid someone to do it for her. But why would she fake conversations with her dead husband? I was starting to worry something was seriously wrong with my grandma. I headed back into the kitchen. I joined the conversation for a bit, then whispered to my mom and told her to go to the bedroom while I talked to Grandma. I kept her busy for around 20 minutes until my mom came back. She looked a little pale, so she must have found the whole thing as creepy as I did. But what now? We didn't know what to do. I snuck back into Grandma's bedroom with the intentions to turn off her laptop before she noticed we had turned it on at all. But then I saw there was a new message waiting for her. From my grandpa. I opened the chat window and it read, "Have Angie and Charlie left already?" My mother's name is Angela, so Angie isn't that strange of a nickname. But nobody calls me Charlie except for my grandparents. Charles is my middle name, and most people don't even know I have one. So I was a little bit disturbed that someone was calling me that when talking to my grandmother, using her dead husband's account. I closed the browser and turned off her laptop. My mother and I said our goodbyes and left. Everything about my grandma's behavior seemed normal, and she was sad to see us go like always. But I know for a fact that it couldn't be her who had written that message, since she had been in the kitchen the whole time. This happened yesterday, and I have no idea what's going on. It feels wrong. I mean, I know something is clearly off, but I have no idea what it could be. How do I even go about looking into this more? Do we just confront my grandma about this? I have no idea where to turn. So, if anyone has any ideas out there, please help me. I'm completely in the dark.